Creating a virtual warehouse in Snowflake is the simplest task, and you must be thinking, why should I watch this video? Well, creating a virtual warehouse might be easiest task, but this video is not limited to it. Compute is the heart of any large processing system, and if you don't know how to manage concepts like scale up and down, scale in and out, or multi-cluster configuration and scaling policies, auto resume and auto suspend, query queuing and warehouse performance, monitoring the compute to limit the credit usage and notification services, result caching and cache purge, and account level configuration for parameters like query queuing, etc. At pragmatic level, you may complain that Snowflake is not the right choice for large data project. The absence of this deep insight about virtual warehouse may cost you way high than you have thought of. And hence, this is an essential and practical guide for every Snowflake developer, architect, admin, and even for managers managing Snowflake projects. So, if you really want to a pro data developer, stay tuned until the end. Welcome back to my channel, Data Engineering Simplified, and to this real Jumpstart course for Snowflake data professionals. The last 11 episodes in this series already covered from history to architecture, bulk data loading to continuous data loading, and many more important concepts. This episode, the episode 12, will primarily focus on virtual warehouse, and we will see the traditional versus Snowflake way of compute. After watching this tutorial, I am sure you will feel full confidence to participate in any complex Snowflake data projects. We will practice everything using Snowflake free trial edition and cover all the important concepts listed in this slide. Before we start, many of you really like this tree map approach as it keeps us focused without wasting any time. So let's review it quickly and understand what we are going to cover hands-on as well as theory. First, we will understand the shared disk and shared nothing architecture. We will quickly look into the traditional architecture versus Snowflake architecture. What does it mean by fixed or static capacity compute model, and what is the advantage Snowflake brings with its elastic compute model. Then we'll focus on sizing and pricing, which will cover warehouse sizing model, nodes and cluster, warehouse pricing model, how the price and compute cost changes as per your Snowflake edition, and how the billing cost works along with the minimum cost. Then we'll jump into the SQL construct, quickly see how we can create a single cluster or a multi-warehouse cluster, and how these attributes like scale in, scale out, up and down, suspend and auto resume works. Next, we'll see the multi-cluster auto-scaling feature, where we are going to understand the billing model, scaling policies like economic and standard, how the scale up and down works with the query load, and understand the compute cost. We'll jump into the warehouse performance, where we'll try to understand the query queuing and performance, warehouse load last 15 days report, check warehouse warm-up period, and also check warehouse caching and the purge concept. We'll jump to the resource monitoring, where we'll try to understand the account level virtual warehouse credit monitor, different suspend and notification policies, create monitoring object, and warehouse credit usage at account level. Last but certainly not the least, we will see the compute menu within the Snow site, and that has query history, warehouse, and resource monitor. So this is how the overall chapter looks like. So first, understand the fixed capacity model using Spark and Hadoop example. Let's say I have a 4-node cluster. I have a leader node, which is also called name node in the world of Hadoop. I have the edge node. This entire compute set is known as a cluster. I have a Spark client, and they submit the Spark job, which we called a workload, or it could be a ETL job. From there, your edge node start communicating to the individual nodes, and that is how the overall ETL process works. So here my total capacity, for example, it could be 20 terabyte of space and 2 terabyte of compute, and my workloads, ETL, ELT, ad hoc queries share the same cluster or a compute from the total capacity. If you have to add capacity or extra compute, you have to add one or a more nodes, and it is a heavy process, needs lot of administrative effort. If Spark Client 1 takes all the compute resources, rest of your Spark job have to wait, or admin has to create a priority queue, and lot more complexity and administration need to be done. This is what we call a fixed capacity model. Even though you can add extra node, but that cannot be done on fly. Now the technologies like EMR or a Databricks or even Kubernetes bring a lot more innovation to have more flexible approach to add compute, but they are not as flexible as the Snowflake Cloud Data Warehouse. Now let's discuss what is the challenges with the fixed capacity model. So one side we have the 24-hour window, and other side we are trying to understand how the compute fluctuates as we progress the day. So this is my total compute capacity, and during the morning I see I need the moderate compute. At the noon, my compute reduces drastically, and as we further progress during the night, I need more and more compute. So if I try to understand this plot, it says that my maximum compute workload is this orange line, and I need 25% buffer because my compute may fluctuate up and down. So what's the problem here? I have a lot of unused capacity, and unused capacity is unused dollar. So this is one of the biggest challenge with the fixed capacity model. There are many more other challenges with the fixed capacity model, but this is one of the primary focus that a lot of enterprises are asking a question, why I need to pay when I'm not using my compute. So how the flexible capacity model looks like. So we have seen that in the morning, my workload is moderate, in the noon it is low, and as I progress towards night, it is even more. So what if I get a technology or a mechanism where the data platform automatically scale up and down as per the requirement, and I don't need to spend any administrative effort to provision such auto scaling stuff. So Snowflake allows you to allocate a warehouse as per your demand, and you pay only for what you are using. It saves hundreds and thousands of dollars for your compute. So let's understand how compute layer or virtual warehouse actually work. Compute layer is where queries, for example, select queries, join queries, data loading, stored procedure, etc. are executed. Before any query is executed, compute machine need to be provisioned, and in Snowflake it is called virtual warehouse. This virtual warehouse or a compute resource has access to the same data storage or the data layer. You can choose virtual warehouse as per the workload required without any contention or a performance and degradation. We have seen earlier in the Spark Hadoop example, it is the same cluster which serves to all the workload. However, in Snowflake, you can choose different virtual warehouses, which is nothing but a compute, and that different virtual warehouse can serve to the different workload, and they are completely independent, and this compute can access the underlying storage at the same time. So if you have a heavy workload like loading data, or if you have a ad hoc reporting which is being used by many users, then you can provision a multi-cluster warehouse for ad hoc queries where you do not understand how your workload will fluctuate. And other side, if you have to load the data, then you can have extra large compute. To create a virtual warehouse, you simply give the name and the size. Bigger the size, more the compute power. And Snowflake handles all the provisioning and configuration of underlying compute resources, and you really don't have to worry about it other than knowing a simple SQL statement. In the case of AWS, the underlying machine would be EC2 instance, and in case of Azure, it will be Azure VM. Snowflake completely abstract those technical complexities, and you don't have to worry what kind of EC2 instance is running under the hood. The virtual warehouse can be scaled up and scaled down at any time during the query execution without any hiccup. When rescaling is done, all the subsequent queries takes the advantage of new size of the virtual warehouse. And this is one of the biggest challenge in any other platform like Spark and Hadoop. When multiple virtual warehouse of different size are running in parallel, the Snowflake cloud layer takes care of the concurrency. If you have not seen my Snowflake architecture video, please go back to the chapter 4-5 and you would understand everything in detail. Feel free to connect and share your queries, challenges and difficulties via comment box when it comes to the Snowflake. My channel audience share their success as well as their day-to-day Snowflake doubt. So if you have any queries regarding data engineering or data engineering management or Snowflake, feel free to drop a note and I would love to answer it. Let's understand virtual warehouse size and the pricing concept. We'll quickly cover the sizing model, the pricing model, how the price changes with addition of the Snowflake version, and the per second billing and minimum cost. Snowflake virtual warehouse comes in 10 sizes. It starts with extra small, which has a 1 compute power, followed by small, medium, large, extra large, 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x, and 6x large. Each increase in size to the next larger warehouse approximately double the compute power and the number of credit billed per hour. Snowflake credit charge based on number of virtual warehouses you use, how long they run, and their size. Virtual warehouse helps you to execute queries, load data, and perform other DML operation. Larger warehouse size like 5x large and 6x large are currently in preview and only available on AWS services. So if you are using Azure or a GCP, you may not be able to provision 5x and 6x large warehouses. So let's understand the warehouse size and its credit cost. So extra small will cost you 1 credit per hour, and that 1 credit equates to $2 or $3 or $4 depends on the Snowflake edition. As we go and choose a larger warehouse, the credit per hour also increases. So here you see we have extra small, which comes with 1 credit per hour. If I go to the small warehouse, it will cost me 2 credit per hour, and per second billing also doubles. If you go to the 6x large, it will cost you 512 credit per hour, which means that if you are paying $2 per credit for a standard edition, it will cost you roughly $1,000 per hour. This is how the price is associated with the size of the warehouse. One important thing to notice: provisioning the larger warehouse sizes like 5x large or 6x large may take slightly longer when they are in a preview version. Let's understand the minimum price. So when you start a warehouse, the first 60 seconds is being charged whether you use it or do not use it. So if you start a warehouse and immediately suspend the warehouse will still be charged for first 60 seconds. Total number of credit bill depends on how long the warehouse runs continuously. Now let's jump into the Snowflake pricing page. So here I am in Snowflake's pricing page. I am choosing a platform. I have selected AWS. I have selected US East as my region. And then I'm going to choose US. For a standard edition, per credit price is $2. For enterprise edition, per credit cost is $3, and for business critical, it is a $4 per credit. The price is completely independent of your cloud platform as well as your region. So Snowflake makes our life very easy. Whether you choose AWS, GCP or Azure, their pricing model is flat. So it does not really change based on what selection you have made it for your cloud provider as well as region. Now, let's understand the SQL construct, and we'll create a single cluster as well as multi-cluster warehouse, and we'll understand the different attributes used to create a virtual warehouse. So you can click on this warehouse tab and it will take you to the page where it will allow you to create, configure, suspend, resume, drop and transfer ownership of a virtual warehouse. I can click on this button and I can create a virtual warehouse. I am creating an extra small virtual warehouse. I am selecting one. If the maximum cluster is 1, it means that it is a single cluster virtual warehouse. Since I am using an enterprise edition of a free trial, it will allow me to create a multi-cluster warehouse. By default, my scaling policy is standard, because in a single cluster, it doesn't make any sense to have a standard and economy. Auto suspend 10, I can go up to 5, or if I choose never, it will never stop. These are the options available. When you create a virtual warehouse using a SQL statement, it will allow you to specify the auto suspend value in second. So 5 minutes equals to 300 seconds. I can check and uncheck this auto resume flag. What does it say? It says that if the warehouse is suspended, it will be automatically resume the next time a query is issued. I can click on show SQL. It will show me the SQL, and I can really copy this SQL and keep it for future reference. So my virtual warehouse, so my demo warehouse is created, and by default it will start the warehouse. Now if I click on this warehouse, it will take me where I can see the performance of my warehouse. Since this warehouse is just started, it does not have any query history. Let me show you other page where I have the history. If you have a lot of query executed in a warehouse, it would show like this, and you can use this panel to understand what is the query load in your virtual warehouse. If you are familiar with the Snowsight also has a menu called compute, and under the compute you have a warehouse, and from here also you can create a warehouse. This exactly the same operation you can perform. The overall look and feel is slightly different, but from here I can also create a warehouse. Now let me create a multi-cluster virtual warehouse and show you how does it look like and what is the difference in the syntax. I can choose extra small, or I can choose a small warehouse for my multi-cluster virtual warehouse. So I have selected my extra small, and I would say that maximum number of cluster is 3. It will start with 1, and then scaling policy standard, and I am making it 5 minutes. What does it mean? That if my compute is idle for 5 minutes, it will automatically suspend my compute, so it does not cost me anything when it is in idle state. I will keep this auto resume flag true. So if a new query is submitted to this virtual warehouse, the virtual warehouse will spin up automatically. Now I am creating that. This is how I can create a multi-cluster warehouse. If I have to drop, suspend and configure, I can again click on the configure. Configure is nothing that if you want to alter your virtual warehouse, I can click on it. It will allow me to change the number from existing one to the new number. And I can finish it. If I would like to see how the SQL looks like, from here you can see it is an alter statement, which you can copy and again use it for any automation. Suspended. If it is suspended, I can resume, I can drop, and I can transfer the ownership to someone else. If it is already running, then the suspend will automatically enabled and I can suspend this cluster by clicking on the suspend button. The running query will first finish and then only the suspend operation will be performed. If your ETL or ELT job is running on a certain frequency, if you would like to see how the workload looks like, you can click on the virtual warehouse name. It will take you to this screen. You can use this slider and see how your workload looks like. If all the colors are blue, it means that your workload is pretty manageable by the size of the virtual warehouse. If you have set some alert, then you would be able to see that how many alerts you have it. We'll see it later in this chapter. Let me show you other warehouse which has query which is waiting for execution. Here I can see the two different colors. One is a yellow and another is blue. It means that this much of query is being queued in this virtual warehouse. And if it is constantly happening, what does it mean? That you have to make sure that you add little more capacity to the compute so there is no waiting period for the queue. Either you use multi-cluster virtual warehouse or you use a large compute to make sure that there is no queuing happening in your virtual warehouse. Let's see the next topic, multi-cluster virtual warehouse. How the multi-cluster virtual warehouse work, what is its billing model, how the scaling policy works, economy and standard, and how does it scale up and down with the query load, and understand the compute concept. So we'll quickly look into all four parts of the multi-cluster virtual warehouse. So far, we have seen that we can use a single cluster virtual warehouse and scale up and down by using an alter SQL statement. If you are using an extra small virtual warehouse and if we need more power, we can use alter command to get medium or extra large cluster, and all future queries or queued queries will start executing in the larger warehouse. But what if we need more cluster itself rather than just adding more power or nodes to the same cluster to address issues like high concurrency of ad hoc queries? Assume that you have to serve a user base where you don't know what the peak workload looks like and you want to have an auto scaling to add new cluster as soon as queries start queuing up in the cluster. In such scenario, Snowflake provides a mechanism called multi-cluster virtual warehouse where you can define min and max cluster with a cluster size. And as soon as it gets the first query, the first cluster comes up. When the first cluster unable to serve all the queries as a workload increases, Snowflake automatically spins up another cluster of same size and add it to the group. You add more user, new cluster comes up, and so on. When the user workload goes down to a normal or zero, the cluster starts suspending automatically and goes to zero. And that's how the Snowflake manages the multi-cluster environment to serve the unpredictable workload. You only pay for the time when cluster is running, and it truly supports the elastic workload. How you can define the scaling policy for multi-cluster virtual warehouse. If you look into this SQL, when the min cluster count and max cluster count is equals to the same number, then it is in the maximized mode. When this number differs and the min cluster count start with 1 or less from the max cluster count, then it is an auto scale. Next, we'll talk about the scaling policy. In the scaling policy, there is an attribute called scaling policy, which by default equals to standard. If you have a strict SLA, then you can choose the standard. And if you feel that no, your SLA is not very strict, then you can also go and choose economy. Economy is more cost conscious approach. However, standard is more SLA driven approach. Now, let me show you how the scale up and down works automatically via warehouse screen. I am using a multi-cluster virtual warehouse with 3 clusters, and size of each cluster is extra small. Right now all the 3 clusters are up and running and serving total 28 queries. Nothing is in queue. Let me refresh couple of times and let's see how it changes. Now you see the number of queries has gone down from 28 to 26 and further to 4, and Snowflake has brought down the active clusters automatically. And now it is working at 50% capacity of the total cluster size, which is 3 in our case. If the number of queries goes down to 0, the entire cluster will be suspended automatically by Snowflake. So this is how the auto scaling function works using the multi-cluster virtual warehouse. How the cost is calculated for multi-cluster virtual warehouse. For standard warehouses, the cost is pretty straightforward. Let's understand the credit cost with an example. So let's assume I have a mid-size multi-cluster virtual warehouse with 3 warehouses runs in the auto scale mode for 2 hours. Warehouse 1 runs continuously for 2 hours, which translate to 120 minutes. Warehouse 2 runs continuously for 1.5 hours, which is 90 minutes. Warehouse 3 runs continuously for 1 hour, which is 60 minutes. So total credit cost for 2 hours window will be calculated as per the below table. For warehouse 1, warehouse 2 and warehouse 3, for first hour they all ran, so it will come 4 credit per warehouse. For the second hour, the warehouse 1 ran for full window, so it would take 4 credit. For warehouse 2, it ran only for 30 minutes, so it will take 2 credit, and warehouse 3 did not run on the second hour, so it is 0. So the total credit for this multi-cluster virtual warehouse arrangement would be 18 credit. If you have a standard edition, as per the Snowflake current pricing model, it will cost you $36, and for enterprise edition, it will cost you $54. So this is how the overall multi-cluster virtual warehouse cost is calculated, and it also follows the per second billing model. Let's understand the virtual warehouse workload and how does it work. You click on the warehouse and it will bring this screen. Using the slider, you can select a range from 8 hours minimum to 14 days maximum. The chart displays the total query load in interval of 5 minutes to 1 hour depending upon the range you selected. The graph shows 4 different status of your workload. Running, queries that were actively running during the interval. Queued, queries that were waiting to run due to warehouse overload. Queued, provisioning, queries that were waiting while the warehouse provision compute resources. Queued, repairing, queries that were waiting while the warehouse repaired compute resources, which occurs very rarely. Let's quickly understand how query load is calculated using a very simple example. Query load is calculated by dividing the execution time in second of all queries in an interval by the total time in second for the interval. In this example, the duration is 5 minutes, means 300 seconds. There are total 5 queries running, and they all are running for a given 5 minute or 300 second window. The execution time for individual queries varies, so running load is 0.92 factor as per the table, and the queued query needed 24 seconds to run, so queue load factor is 0.08, and that's how you can understand the query load for a warehouse. This is a very simple example considering an extra small warehouse. This gets little trickier when you choose a large or a multi-cluster virtual warehouse. Now let's jump into the workload screen and see them live and understand it. So when you click on the warehouse tab using your profile, it will show you all the warehouse which are currently available. I have different warehouse starting from extra small to small, and some of them are multi-cluster warehouse. Right now, all of them are suspended. Let's see how does it look like. Let me click on the compute warehouse, which comes by default with your free trial edition. You have the slider and you can move the slider left and right to narrow down your selection criteria. Now I have narrowed down to a very specific window, and here you can clearly see that I have running queries as well as I have queued queries, which is waiting for provisioning. So this is for a small compute warehouse. Let me take another scenario. Note, this is a multi-cluster virtual warehouse, and you see I have given a lot of load to this warehouse, and there are a lot more queuing happening in the warehouse. Since it is a multi-cluster environment, running factor is 33.63 and the queue factor is 7.38. So for that 300 seconds, this is how the warehouse workload looks like. Let me take you to another example. Here you see I do not have any queuing period and everything is running pretty smoothly. This is also a multi-cluster virtual warehouse. However, I have not given enough load, and that's why everything looks pretty smooth. So this is how you can really understand your virtual warehouse workload by looking at the different status: running, queue, queue for provisioning, and queue for repair. Now we will quickly look into the resource monitoring. What is account level virtual warehouse credit monitor and the virtual warehouse level monitor, different suspend and notification policies, create a monitoring object, and try to understand the warehouse credit usage report from the account admin console. To see the resource monitor, you must have access to the account admin role with your profile. you can change your role from switch role menu. Once you switch your role to the account admin, you would be able to see the account tab and click on the account tab, go to the resource monitor. I have two resource monitors, which is monitoring my virtual warehouse usage on a daily basis or a monthly basis. And you can define different notification level. Let's see how the resource monitor create action looks like. Here you can give the name of the resource monitor. Number of credit allowed per cycle can vary from day to month to year. I would like to have my maximum credit quota as 100. And Sunita monitor, I can either have the monitoring at account level or warehouse level. For now, I am keeping it at warehouse level. Here, which warehouse you would like to monitor. So for example, I would like to monitor my ad hoc virtual warehouse, which has a 2-node cluster. And then you can add many of them. And here you can customize it. Click on this customize link. It will show you whether you want to start this monitoring immediately or you want to do it later. If you click on a letter, it will ask from which date you want to make this monitoring effective. By default, your monitoring cycle reset on a monthly basis. However, you can change it yearly, weekly, daily, or never. Let's say that I want to have my daily consumption fixed to a certain amount. And then you can end never, or you can give a specific date. So this is how you can create using this web UI console. Let me create that. Here you can also set the time zone, UTC or a local. Right now I have selected a local time zone and let me set it. So I have defined the scheduled, okay, which is a daily run. Now the first action and notification I would like to have it that suspend and notify when it reaches 80% of the credit used. What does it mean? If my credit usage on a daily basis reaches to 80, then it will suspend the virtual warehouse. This option does not kill your existing queries. It will make sure that all existing queries are executed first and the new queries are not submitted. So this is how this action will work. If I say that if it reaches 90%, suspend immediately and notify when 90% of the credit is used. What does it mean? All the existing queries will be killed and warehouse will be suspended immediately as soon as it reaches 90% of the credit used. Alongside, I can also say that please notify when it reaches to the 50%. I can say 60% and I can say 70%. Okay, and I can also see how the SQL looks like. So this is how the SQL looks like. First, you create a resource monitor by specifying the different parameters, and then you can specify the trigger and suspend, immediate, notify, and then alter the virtual warehouse to associate this resource monitor to this warehouse. So if your resource monitor is triggered, then your notification will come on the notification tab, and this is how your notification look like at different stages of your virtual warehouse credit usage. You can click on this cross button and you can say that yes, I understood this notification, please close this. So this is how you can set up a resource monitor and you can use the notification to get the notification for your virtual warehouse. Now you can also go to the usage menu to understand what is your virtual warehouse usage. This screen shows that how your different virtual warehouse use different credits. Now let's jump into a Snow site and understand how all those warehouses looks like under the modern web UI. And we'll quickly see the query history, warehouse and resource monitor and many submenus within that. So all the compute related items are clubbed under a compute option, which includes query history, warehouse and resource monitor. So let's start with the query history. When you click on a query history, you would be able to see this screen where you can apply different filters like queued, blocked, running, failed, successful. You can also use a filter by user. You can use this filter option to apply the different filter, for example, query ID or virtual warehouse, and it will give you all virtual warehouse name, duration, session ID, and many more. You can apply the filter, clear the filter. If you would like to add or remove the columns, this options comes handy for you. So this is how the query history tab looks like. For example, I would like to understand how this query has performed. I can click on the query and it would show me all the detail, including its profile. Next, we'll go to the warehouse. We have already seen it. Let me cover it quickly. Here again, you can search by warehouse name. You can go by the status. You can also by the size, and you can click on particular virtual warehouse to see how it has performed. When I come to this screen, I can see the warehouse activity by hour, day, week, and last 2 weeks, including additional information captured in this screen. I can also create a virtual warehouse from this screen. And if I click on that, from here I can edit, resume, drop and transfer ownership. These are the options available within the warehouse menu. Let's go and check the resource monitor. Before you really access the resource monitor, make sure that you have to have the account admin profile selected. You can click on this resource monitor and you can understand how these notifications are set up and when is the suspend and suspend immediately. From here you can edit and drop. So if you want to edit it, click on edit and it will allow you to edit and change the different parameters of your resource monitor. I hope this summary video and live walkthrough of virtual warehouse has been a meaningful session for you. Now it is time to understand how actually Snowflake stores its data. Is it an open source file format or a proprietary file format? I'm sure that you will be excited to learn about it. Let's decode all those things in our next chapter.